Hi, so in this video, we're going to be playing with Zentangle Art. Zentangle is basically a mindfulness practice in drawing where a very simple template is created and then using line mostly and shape to create some really fun designs is used. You could use anything from just drawing simple lines to start, a contour drawing of a shape that you love, or you could start with using templates, creating geometric shapes. You can see I have a whole bunch of fun tools. I have French curves, which are great for, creating all these great curves, and templates, ruler, things to make circles with, triangle, any other template you can find. But you don't have to use these. You could print out an image online that just has a contour outline drawing and then transfer that or copy it onto a piece of paper and just break up that shape into different smaller shapes and start having fun with the Zentangle method. So Zentangle is basically, well, I'll just show you. So right here, I created a few boxes with just, real simple templates where I would start creating within all these different designs. And it's a very intuitive thing. So this isn't something that's typically pre-planned. And I'm not going to be, if I want straight lines, I'm not typically going to be busting out a ruler at this point. Everything is freehand. So it's more freeing. It can be very meditative. It's a really good stress reliever. And it does take into consideration shape and line working together and essentially balancing geometric shape with organic shape, which is what we are working on in my design class right now. So with these, I could even break up some of these shapes a little bit smaller. I could show you what I mean. So I started, what did I start with? I think I started with, no, I didn't start with that one. Where'd it go? Can't find my template. Anyways, I am just gonna try and break it up a little bit more so that I can work with some smaller spaces, because it can get a little difficult if your shapes are too big, because then say I want to do straight line or some kind of intricate design in here, I don't always have a steady hand, so I want to keep my shapes smaller. So I would just start, I don't know, you can just do anything you want. I have a lot of curves in this piece, so I'm going to implement some more geometric shape. You can do like, kind of goes back to, your doodling days when you're just drawing and you just, follow your intuition, whatever comes to you, and have fun with it. Don't worry about perfection. I wouldn't bust out a template to do all these tiny little circles, because by the time everything is done, I'm not going to worry about it. You can, of course, do some little thumbnail designs beforehand if you have a specific idea that you want to do. There's really beautiful Zentangle art online where there's like all kinds of images and negative spaces for shapes. And so if I would draw a tree here, I could break up that contour line tree with all these different shapes in it and then start filling it in with all of these. They're basically dots, little circles, and lines and little maybe wavy lines. So there's like 4 different things that you use in Zentangle within the shape. So in here, like wavy lines that can vary. They don't all have to be the same. I don't have the steadiest hand right now. But you can see, like, as it opens up and gets bigger, it gets a little more difficult. But the thing about Zentangle is you can keep adding to it and disguise a lot of your mistakes. So there's like curved lines, straight lines, wavy lines, circles, which are considered like dots. There's like stippling, which is just all the little dots, and stippling can be done with little dots. It can be done with little shapes, even squares, could be anything you want, but it's basically to create like a value. I don't know if you can see that. And as you open up, it starts to play with value a little bit. When lines on white paper are closer together, it reads a little bit darker, and as they open up, it reads a little bit lighter. Also, you could play with line weight, but that might be going a little over the top, but line weight helps you also, you know, play with value a little bit. Say you have a tapered line that you design and you were to fill this in all in black. Let's say all my lines were just hatching and they're all essentially opening up. You can see I've gone really close here, and then it opens up and reads lighter because more where the paper is showing through. If this were all filled in, and this being bigger and bold, that would look like, I'll find my brush again, more like, I'm not being super careful, but you can see right away how the thick end is going to read, obviously much heavier and darker. When you're designing a line that has a thickness or a varied thickness, you always want to start with the edges, draw those in, and then fill in that new shape. You don't want to just try and do this and build up its thickness, because then it's going to be really messy, like mine is right now. We did a foliage project, an inked project with positive and negative space, and the technique of filling in shape with ink is pretty consistent with doing this kind of thing. It's like an eyebrow. I could go in, when I'm done with a bunch of line, I can fill in certain shapes if I wanted. Just depends on what look I want. I was going for kind of a little sunset where my rays are coming out. Yeah, I didn't like that one. It's just a fun way to play with all different types of line and different shapes together without being locked into like it has to be perfect and it has to look a certain way. As you get better at it, you'll have more control over that, and then you can design some really beautiful art. But that's not my goal right now. So I could do like, if my hill is going back in space, I would widen the spaces as they come closer, and then I could just, I don't know what I would fill this. Anything you want.
you get the idea. So look at Zentangle Art. It's Zentangle, one word. It's yeah, it can be fun and meditative, and you can plan it out if you want, if you have a really clear idea of a look that you want. But even in here, I could do some shapes. This is just to play with some ideas. Building value with Zentangle. Basically, say I want to get like a these are all getting patterns and stuff. It's starting small. Say I'm using one shape. As I go out, so one way you can create value, like we said, the more of the white paper you cover, the darker it's going to read. And obviously, if I have a circle template, I might, if I'm going about this size, I might use that template. I wouldn't be able to use a compass for this because it's really small, but if you went bigger, you could use a compass to draw your circles. It's the little shapes, the smaller lines that you're not going to use. Let's ignore that. So in areas where they're smaller and the closer together, it'll read a little bit, tiny bit darker. If the line weight is all the same, I can start playing with line weight and I can make those areas even thicker for the contour lines, or I could leave it like that, or I could start, so I'm just going to use line, filling in. I'm just using hatching. And as I come out, those lines open up, or whatever shape, or say I want to use wavy line, the spaces in between open up a little bit more, creating a lighter value. You can do cross-hatching. The Zentangle, you know, it can, this is just practicing some values, which I'm not really stressing in my current project in my design class right now, just a little bit. It's more about the line quality, the unique shapes that you come up with, and having fun. Allowing yourself to kind of let go of, I don't know, controlling what your work looks like all the time. In my class, they learn a lot of techniques where you really have to be careful with their drawing, you know, their edging, their craftsmanship, and all their shapes. There's a lot to think about. This one, it's time to relax a little and just play with line and shape. They do still have to create balance within a composition, so their overall design needs to read well. And it needs to be unified and balanced with positive and negative shape and geometric shape against organic shape. So even this, hatching these lines, is very geometric against the circles. So that's kind of a balance right there. I have a lot of curves in here. Somehow I would want to bring in more rectilinear shapes because these are all curvilinear. This is very rectilinear, bringing in some curves, circles, and then the opposite. So it's almost like blending these two elements together to create a cool design. So on this big one, I could just, like I said, I could do a simple design using circles. And you can draw it out before you ink anything, at least like your bigger portion to make sure it's what you want. I'm not doing that. I'm just kind of going with it. Say I did like an upside down crescent moon. I love crescent moons. So obviously I have a little mistake. I would want to draw first and then be really careful when I'm inking. I don't know if it's even or not, but so when you start doing this, you start creating, some cool new shape where I can do, I can break this up even more into smaller shapes. I could do, you need like a triangle. Like I said, totally intuitive. It's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So you can start with geometric shapes, just breaking up your picture plane within your first 4 lines. I think that's crooked. If you use a compass, this is not my favorite compass, but compass. And yes, you can put a drawing pen in your compass. That did not work out. So I would ink it, just put the pen right in your compass, whatever kind you have, to draw your circles. Do not try and freehand them because that would be really hard to do. I could use a ruler or an edge of something to, say I wanted to do straight lines. This is a really big space. Yeah, I'd probably use a ruler. If I have really small shapes, no, I'm not going to. So the smaller the shape, like bring them down to like these kind of shapes within something big, the easier it is to control all of your drawing. So just kind of have fun. It doesn't have to be, all planned out. But like I said, it could be anything you want as you go around. That's about it.
Okay, so I basically, I started adding some design. I'm typically not using a ruler except if I really want to keep certain areas straight. I'm freehanding a lot because it is a meditative practice and I want to stick with that and let it flow. So if I'm just working over here, I can use a ruler. I could draw out some ideas, in my overall bigger plan before I ink them, which is probably, a good call just to make sure things are the way that you want before you ink them. But in your practice rounds, try and just, do things free. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's not the point of this practice, and it is a practice. You might go out of the lines or stuff. You get better as you do more of it. But if you make a mistake, like in my video, I think you could maybe see that in this area, I was struggling because I didn't have the right compass with my pen and I didn't have, round objects that would fit this. And plus I'm kind of sitting back, so my head is not in the video. So I'm trying to, ad-lib a little bit here and fix any mistakes, just covering them up. How can you make it a happy accident instead of totally wrecking your work? So that's part of the freedom in this. Just like these are not all perfect and I don't care. It's just, it's a certain wave pattern, and as I go, I might decide I'm going to fill them in with line, or, of course, I can't find my brush pen, so, you could fill them all in. Every other, you can fill in your shapes, you can do little patterns within them as you go smaller and smaller. Remember, patterns just repeat. They can all be different. Just whatever comes to you. Doesn't matter. If you listen to your instincts, it's kind of like trust that voice inside your head that says, you should do this here, or maybe we'll try that. And if you don't want to commit to doing the inking right away, like I said, it's fine to start in pencil to do your design. It's still the same method, and then you just finish it with ink. And you can do some shading with pencil in certain areas that can create a really neat depth to the work. It's a little, multimedia in there. But you can see this is a pretty big piece, and this would take a while to finish. So if I went in with pencil and really decided what patterns I want to use, and I did that and then went back in and inked them, I might feel better about it instead of, for this project, for, my basic design students. For you guys, you might want to do the pencil first and then ink it. But if I were just going to do like a small piece and I was just going to do it for complete meditative practice, I wouldn't use pencil. I would just go in with my pens, and you can use any pens. You can use, technically in Zentangle, I could use different colors. I could use markers. Basic design students, stick with black and white and pencils. Also, before even doing this, I just laid in my circles any old place. You can section off your page. So say I want these circles to be centered. I could find my width. This is 8 inches across. I would mark at 4 inches top and bottom, or around the border. and then draw a line through it, really light in pencil, so that I can use my compass or my ruler, whatever, and keep everything centered. So I would be right on that line and then do all of my circles from that center axis line. So as a guidepost, you can do that, and then you would have the same spots if you were going to do one size and then do another size bigger and another size bigger. Obviously, you can do different locations. The same would apply for something like this. If I want this point centered on my page, this is a very symmetrical piece, so I would want to create a center axis line. And also, if you're doing lines across, you want to maybe measure, how far up from the border that would be. They might be a little bit crooked here. Little things in the beginning to set you up to create a really nicely balanced piece. Those are all good things. I'm having my students do some of these smaller rectangles or squares to practice some different patterns. This is just, probably one of the most basic ones, but they have to go into Zentangles and they have to pick at least 9 patterns to practice from and or design their own. And then they have to come up with this great new design. So I hope this helps. This video is mainly just about the setup and doing an initial layout before you get into the Zentangling, and then how that kind of leads into the Zentangle part of it. So anyways, thank you for listening.